Welcome back to the 2020 Rewind. You're just in time for episode 5. We're taking a look at my first controller, Phobos. He is a dark soul. He's as dark as Dark Current was. That was my level 50 defender I showed at the end of the 50-50 showcase. But this is the 2020 Rewind. We're taking a look at 20 more. 20 more level 50 incarnated builds on the City of Heroes Homecoming server, specifically the Excelsior Shard. And this, mein Freunds, is a debuffing controlling monster. Okay, dark control, very strong set. Dark, what do they call it? Darkness affinity is what they call it for controllers. It's kind of like dark miasma and defenders and corruptors. Very strong debuff set. And Soul Mastery. You guys know I love Soul Mastery way more than Dark Mastery. Another great set. I'm going to be leveraging a lot of different pet abilities, a lot of different proc abilities, and just trying to shut down whatever it is the enemy is going to try to do. Just complete neutering. Let's go ahead and take a look at the mids build so you can see what I am talking about here. Here she is. Mids. Love it. Boom, there we are. All right, so taking a look here, we've got, kind of going down the list, I've taken everything in darkness control, with the exception of Possess. I think I talked about this before in a different build back in the 50-50 showcase. I don't necessarily have a problem with the single target Confuse, but, I don't really need it for this build. It doesn't really help with the flow, in my opinion. Works great, I think, with Mind Control. It works great with Seeds Confusion. But it just seems out of place in darkness control, at least in my opinion. I don't know what my exact beef is with it, but anyway, you kind of do this, raise your hands and shoot out a possessed beam or something, and then somebody gets confused and they start to look around. It's just not smooth, in my opinion, with the rest of this crap you got going on here, which is more, this is kind of a blasty set, really, a blasty control set. You got your shadowy binds and dark grass. Those are your two single target immobilize and hold. Living Shadows is like a cone attack, immobilize. Fearsome Stare is a cone fear you got in here. Heart of Darkness, that's a PB AoE stun explosion. You got some pets with Haunt that you target drop on your enemies. You got a placeable hold field, shadow field that you drop on like a bomb on people. And then you got Umber Beast, which is your big pet. So like all those things, in my opinion, are sort of front facing, attacking, getting in there, destroying people. Where Possess is kind of like, hands up, possess, and wait to see if you hit or not. And if you miss, then what? It's just sort of a drag. It just slows down the action. Then you got Darkness Affinity, which is very similar to Dark Miasma. You got your heal, Twilight Grasp. This is a target downrange heal, but the green burst of healing juice is around you. This sometimes confuses your not so savvy teammates who are like in melee trying to get healed, but your heal is actually a range heal on you. In order to heal any of your melee friends, you need to get into heal range next to them. So that's, can lead to some problems. It can put you in danger if you're not trying to get into melee too much. Tar Patch, similar to Shadowfield, it's a placeable bomb. You sort of drop at range, debuffing, resistance, and stuff. Darkness Knight, that's a range toggle you throw out there and debuffs a bunch of people in the smoky aura. Howling Twilight, I've got that one. That's kind of using this range stun you'll see in the build here. It is also a res if you want to look at it that way, but how many people are dying these days anyway that you need a res and you can't just get a temporary res power from the store? Anyway, Shadowfall, that's your own PB AoE aura. Fade is a click PB AoE, buff for you and your allies. Soul Absorption, this is another PB AoE clickable buff to you and I think your allies. I don't take Black Hole. I talked about it with Dark Current, with Dark Miasma. One of these intangible freaking powers is terrible. I hate them with a passion, especially when controllers abuse them with Dimension Shift and Gravity Control. And then Dark Servant, that is your go-to debuffing pet. He's got a heal, he's got debuff powers, immobilizes, he attacks a little bit. So he's kind of like a little pocket controller. So I've got those two combinations of powers, and then you throw in Soul Mastery as your other option here. Scoot that up for you real quick. Here we go. All right, so anyway, then I've also got Soul Mastery, Dark Embrace, your toggle shield, Dark Obliteration, downrange, AoE ranged attack, Soul Drain, PB, AoE, self buff of damage and accuracy, doesn't damage itself. And then I've got the Seer pet, because I'm also going with a lot of pets on this build. As you can kind of see, I've got, the Seer, you've got the Dark Servant, you've got the Umber Beast, and Haunt is a couple more pets, and then you've got your lore pets on top of that. So I've got a lot of pets, a lot of debuff going around. Going to try to just, like I said, neuter the enemies into submission. This is really going to be a strong, solid build as far as teams and taking on tough foes like, AVs and heroes and giant monsters, that sort of thing. Not sure how soloable it is. We'll see. That's going to be what my first set of tests will be, but we'll see what happens when I get to those missions. But let's go through the actual slotting and what these powers do and what I was attempting to do here. What is my strategy, my goal? Mostly, I'm going to be trying to stack all of this debuffery, all this control to just keep everything in one place and lock it down, lower its accuracy, lower its damage, lower its regen, and make it pretty much harmless to me and my enemy or my allies. So if you take a look, it's going through each of these things, looking at the pop-ups here as far as the not so much the damage and the slotting, but just looking at the debuffery and the side effects. You got your shadowy binds, single target immobilize, right? But it's got a minus to hit, the minus fly on it. So that just kind of give you the numbers on it. If I click here, effects, that's a hit on that is minus 7.5%. So start to keep this in mind as I get into the total numbers here on this build. Similar to my Blaster Evocation, I was just talking about the stackability of holds with his character, and I was getting up to 30 to 40 mag of hold. You're going to see, similar to what I had with Dark Current, a ton of minus to hit. So this is just Shadowy Binds, minus 7.5%, right? So boom, got that. All right, then we've got, unlock that. Twilight Grasp. Again, taking a look at the little pop-ups here. It's got a heal, of course, but it's got minus to hit, minus damage, minus regen on it. Looking at the numbers, zooming on these, you can see, again, minus to hit, another 5. So right there, you add those two up, I'm at minus 12.5%. So that's pretty much a, 2 clicks, click, click, attack, attack. Damage debuff is 10%. The regen debuff is minus 50%. That's going to be another big feature of this build, is the ability to just lower the regen of the enemies a ton. Probably more than what I was able to do with Dark Current, because even though I've got similar set with Dark Affinity and Dark Miasma, the defenders, they really only have the minus regen with a couple of their powers, where I'm going to get it from some additional sources as well. And I forget exactly which interface I used with my defender there, my quadruple D or my DDS. But anyway, I've got the minus regen in interface you'll see coming up. So I'm gonna have a lot of minus regen ability that I'm gonna be able to throw out on top of everything else, and the extra pets are gonna be chipping in all that stuff. All right, so that's Twilight Grass. Then you got Dark Grass. There's another minus 7.5%. Let me reduce this again so you can kind of see the pop-ups. Right here's Dark Grass. It's a hold, minus to hit, another 7.5. You've got kind of going down the list here. That was Living Shadows, minus to hit, minus fly. So that's going to be a nice combination with Shadowy Binds, right? Minus to hit, minus fly, minus to hit, minus fly, immobilize, immobilize. The to hit debuff on shadows here is minus 7.5 as well. So immediately I've got 7.5. I got 7.5. I got 7.5. That's what, 22.5 plus the Twilight Grasp 5 is 27.5 debuff already. I haven't even thrown out my toggle yet. Fearsome Stare. This is your Cone Fear, minus to hit on this one. That's a 15% debuff of to hit. So that's going to be the whole group that you're firing at. So even if they're not feared, because maybe the mag is not high enough to fear them like a boss, they're still going to have a nice 15% debuff on their to hit, which will help keep you safe. So there's your fear. Darkest Night, this is the toggle I was mentioning a second ago. So you got that thrown in there. That's also got some minus to hit, some minus damage on it. If I lock that in, the effects, let me zoom in for you. Some more minus to hit, right? 15% minus to hit, that's as strong as Fearsome Stare, plus the damage debuff of minus 30. So Fearsome Stare and Darkest Night, that's going to hit the entire group that you're targeting downrange. You got minus 30% just with those two powers. And then you throw in your Living Shadows to, immobilize them in place. That's another 7.5. So now they're 37.5% debuff. Hit them with single target stuff like Shadowy Binds, Dark Grass, Twilight Grass, right? You're minus 7.5, minus 7.5, minus 5. You're just shredding their ability to hit anybody, you included. All right, then let's keep going. We've got Heart of Darkness, another minus to hit. This is going to be on your PB AoE control right here. So that has its minus to hit, another 7.5%. But this is, in a radius around you. I forget the exact range of this power. Does it say what the range is? Radius is 25 feet. So that's a huge explosion, right? So you got that, the Darkest Night, the Fearsome Stare. That's definitely everybody around you is getting, aside from getting controlled, you're debuffing the crap out of everybody in an immediate range around you. And then I've got, like as I mentioned, the interface has the minus to hit as well, which we'll look at when I get into my Incarnate powers. But every time I damage somebody with, an attack, which like Heart of Darkness does have damage, Living Shadows does have damage, that's going to debuff some more to hit. So again, just shredding all of their ability to lay a glove on me. Then we've got Haunt. Haunt is one of your first pets in the set. This is going to summon a pair of little specter ghosts that appear on your target downrange. So it's like a ranged attack essentially that summons these pets right on top of the target, and they start attacking. They've got like claws and I forget their. Let's see what else to show here. Summon Shade, minus 7.5 to hit to the target. So I think, is that like an aura around them? I don't know. I know they do have certain powers. I'm just trying. Oh, here it is. So it pops up. I don't know if you guys can see this if I pull up the zoom in window. Probably not. But I'll read it to you. It's story time. I got the new version of Mids came out today, and it's a little bit buggy. Buggy. So anyway, there you guys can see a little bit. So anyway, you got Shadow Punch that has some minus to hit. Scare has a fear, ranged fear. It does have some resistance. So they've got really two attacks. They've got a Scare, ranged fear. I think that's going to be single target. And then they've got the little Claw Punch power that has some minus to hit. So again, some more minus to hit. We're throwing some extra fear in here on top of what I'm throwing out there with Fearsome Stare. I believe the value of the minus to hit is probably about what I was doing with the 7.5%, I'm guessing. All right, so what else we got? Then taking a look, you've got Shadow Field. This is your placeable bubble of holding. So let me take a look at those numbers real quick. So Shadow Field also has minus to hit, right? So you've got that. The numbers on that are, let's lock it in. I think I need to hover over again. Does it say Shadow Field Controller? It doesn't show the numbers here, the pop-ups from what I can see. But again, it's probably 7.5%. Somewhere's in there. Shadow Field's going to give you some more minus to hit. Right, that's a big AoE. The area of effect of Shadow Field is... Does it say how big this thing is? You can drop it up to 60 feet away. Yeah, it's not popping up in the little window here. Anyway, it's a huge radius that this thing. It's probably as big as, if not bigger than Heart of Darkness, which was like 25 feet. So anyway, Shadow Field, you plunk that down. There's a bunch more minus to hit. So the people that are standing in the middle of that. Then we're looking at Umber Beast, which is your big pet, your tier 9, right? This guy's got a lot of different abilities to debuff. So let me again pull up my pop-out window here. Umber Beast. He's got Claw Rake, Vicious Bite, Shadowy Binds, Umber Swipe, Terrifying Roar. Those attacks are all going to be, minus to hit on, I think, all of them at this point. Continue. Again, the pop-out windows are not working. It's causing crash errors here in the new version of Mids. But anyway, the Rake, the Bite, that's all minus hit. It has Shadowy Binds, which has Immobilize, minus to hit, and Fly. So it's essentially the same thing as your Cone, uh, Living Shadows. The Terrifying Roar is a Cone Fear, I believe. Yeah, it has Terrorize, minus to hit. It does damage as well. So that's similar to what you're going to do with Fearsome Stare, except your Fearsome Stare doesn't have innate damage. But anyway, you got all those, darkness controls, has a ton of control, but it also has a bunch of minus to hit. And then you start coupling that with these darkness affinity powers, which I mentioned a couple, like Twilight Grasp and Darkest Night, but Tar Patch, minus damage resistance, minus speed, minus fly, right? Remember, we also have minus fly sitting here in Shadowy Binds and Living Shadows. So you got 3 minus fly powers. The minus, nothing's going to get away, okay? It'll be immobilized, it'll be grounded, it's going to be stuck in the tar patch. You then have the 30%, debuff to damage resistance. So that's going to be nice to increase your damage output, because that's going to be probably the weakness of the build. It's just you're spreading damage out in so many different powers, and a lot of your controls do not naturally have damage to them. And some of them do, but it's not like a gravity control or a mind control kind of set. All right, so continuing there, we also talked about Howling Twilight already. So that has, I use it as a ranged stun with this build. So it's got minus recharge as well. It's got minus regen. It's got a disorient, the stun. You got and also reses on top of it. Plus it does some damage. So I'm using it as a ranged stun to kind of couple with my Heart of Darkness, which is my PB AoE stun. But again, take a look at the numbers. It's huge. Minus regen, 500%. Twilight Grasp, don't forget that already has some minus regen, 50%. So that's minus 550%. You're going to see Dark Servant. It's also throwing out Twilight Grasp. That's going to be minus regen. And then the interface I'm taking also has minus regen. So I'm going to be negative regenning the crap out of enemies on top of the minus to hit, on top of the minus damage that I'm throwing out there. So Howling Twilight, great, power as an attack, power as a ranged stun. The mag on that stun is 2, but you already have stun with Heart of Darkness, and the hybrid I'm going to take is going to give me even potentially more stun. And then don't forget, controllers have overpower. I think it is their critical control, proccing that their Mez powers do. So that's going to stack some more control on everything else. Shadowfall, I mentioned this already. This is a toggle AoE aura shield, right? It gives you some defense. It gives you some resistance to energy, negative, psionics, and fear. So the defense is going to be nice because even though it's only 4.5%, you can slot it for more if you want. I didn't, but you can. I think I did a little bit with the luck of the gambler. Yeah, a little bit. But wasn't the main thing I was trying to do. But any little bit of defense is going to be amplified with all the minus to hit you're throwing out there. So even though that in and of itself isn't much, minus 4.5, you throw that with your minus 30, 40% to hit debuff you're stacking on people, they're going to have a heck of a time even laying a glove on you. But I've got mostly damage resistance in here. So energy, negative, psionics, and fear. That's also why I went with Soul Mastery a little bit, because Soul Mastery is going to give me Dark Embrace, which also says Smash, Lethal, Negative, and Toxic. So I'm going to get some more damage resistance out of that. And then the other thing you're going to see is kind of jump ahead to Fade. When I click Fade, Fade gives you defense, yes, but it also gives you resistance to Smash, Lethal, Negative, and Psionic. So between those 3 sources of damage resistance and defense, I've got a lot of, mitigation just from that. Again, then throw in the minus to hit. And I'm not even talking about what's being held or feared or controlled, right? Just talking about just raw damage mitigation between defenses, resistances, debuffing, right? Minus to hit, minus damage. this guy is going to be pretty strong as far as survivability goes. It's his lethality that's going to, I think, be his shortcoming. But anyway, continuing. Haunt. We've got Haunt out here. That is your first pet. I already mentioned this. This summons a couple little shades. The cool thing about them, aside from sort of the damage and the debuff that they do, they also have a taunt aura, so they're going to taunt whoever you throw them into. It's got a mag 10 taunt on this thing. So that is going to, I don't know, I forget what it is on a tank or whatever, but that's gonna pull aggro towards them. So it's a good drop them somewhere, either in the middle of the group or on the other side of the group you're trying to target so that they're not coming straight at you. So it's a good sort of distraction or like an alpha sacrificial strike you can just drop in the middle of a group. The way I've got it slotted is for damage for the most part. Plus, I've got the defense aura, I think, in it because I was trying to keep my pets alive as much as possible. So I do have that slotted for the bonus defense aura. I also got Umber Beast has defense bonus. Summon Seer, when we get to that one, I've got the resist bonus aura. So I'm trying to give my pets as much survivability because I'm going to rely upon them a lot for the damage output and some supplemental control. All right, so then we continue to move on. We talked about that. Let's get into Fade. I mentioned this already. It's a click. So when you click it, it's going to give defense to, your allies. I think to all things. I think also this impacts you, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Let me just double check. You partially bring yourself and all nearby allies into the netherworld, vastly increasing defense to all attacks, resistance to lethal, smashing, negative, psionic. Very short period of time, as well as dramatically increasing resistance to defense debuffs. And it goes on to say the power is best used to help counter a dangerous situation. So you're about to go into the heat of some fight. Uh, that's a good way to kind of get the team jacked up a little bit, especially if you're fighting I'm thinking like Cot, Circle of Thorns would be a good one here, or Kearney's. That'll help a lot with that, the negative, the psionic crap, the defense, to everything. We'll take a look at what the numbers actually do when we get to that. Anyway, got that going on. Then we're also looking at Soul Absorption, similar to Fade. This is going to be regen, recovery, and minus to hit on that power. So there's even more minus to hit, stacking with all your other crap you got going on. And it's going to be giving you some regen, some recovery. See if it helps your allies. So it says you drain the essence of both defeat alive and feast. So even if they're alive or dead, you're draining from them, and you and your allies regenerate. So it's not just, I like these powers because it's not just it's not just your allies. Stuff like the typical kind of buff set would be it's allies only. No, these two powers, soul absorption, and your do fade powers help you as well. So that's nice to have that as part of your repertoire. All right, so anyway, soul absorption, I've got that. I kind of got it Franken slotted because I wanted to get as much recharge on that as I could. As you can see, can't really see my numbers. I have to slide up the window a little bit, but we'll do that so you can see the pop up. So I've got recharge is capped on that, trying to get that to come back as fast as I can. Fade, I think, is pretty close. It's not as recharged up as Soul Absorption is, but it's up there pretty good. What else we got going on? Then you got Dark Servant. Everybody knows about Dark Servant. Let me go ahead and shut the pop-out window down. Let me drag this back down again so you can see it. So Dark Servant, we've got that power. The Dark Servant is like a mini, defender, mini controller. It's got all kinds of, special little powers in it. It's kind of a good complement to your Umber Beast, your wolf there. So the Dark Servant, it's got a heal, it's got a bunch of minus defense, or sorry, minus to hit. It's got immobilize. I think it's got a hold power. So it's got all these little things that it can do on top of everything else. So it's a great combination. Look, let me see if I can get this to show up for you guys. Move this over here. Yeah, here it is. So here's Dark Servant. I don't know if you can see all the numbers, but it's kind of cut off a little bit. But it's got a minus 26% to hit debuff the way I have it slotted. That's its Chill of Night power. and it does some damage on top of that. Let's speed this up so you can see it better. There we go. Move this over. There you go. Now you can see it. So there's this is Chill of Night, right? So it does some damage, and it does some minus to hit. Then you got, it has Darkest Night that it's throwing out there, right? So that's also some minus to hit, 13%. The damage debuff is 22.5. So it's gonna fire this thing up. I think does it have a range? Yeah, it's basically throwing out Dark Miasma powers, which is super powerful. It has resistance. It has Tenebrous Tentacles, so that's gonna give you some additional, control, of course. It's got the heal. I mean, it's got all kinds of little powers and things that are going to make it super useful. Uh, an extra controller, pretty much, an extra defender, however you want to think about it. It's got a lot of stuff going on for it. All right, that is the main, meat and potatoes, primary and secondary set. Then I've got get into my tertiary. This is, I think, the first character I've shown you all that I took the teleport pool, and I have fold space. So fold space, if you don't know, that's the AoE teleport of enemies. You pull enemies and drop them like right on you. Now, why the hell would I do that as a controller? That's freaking insane. No, because check it out. I've got all this control, especially I got some nice PB AoE or patch controls, right? So I can set up, essentially a kill box or a control box might be a better way of thinking about it. I can throw down tar patch. I can throw down what is it? The bubble there, the shadow field, right? And I can teleport all this stuff right into it. Plus, I got my pets surrounding me, so they're gonna immediately start attacking whatever shows up. And then when they do arrive, I can immediately hit Heart of Darkness, a big old PB AoE stun. Or when they arrive, I can Howling Twilight PB AoE stun. Or I can Soul Absorption when they get there. I can Soul Drain when they get there. I can Dark Obliteration blast them when they get there. So I've got a lot of tools and tricks and things I can do to them upon arrival. Okay, so I can just snatch and grab. So it's a great, power. Or I can throw, Darkest Night and drag pull them with the old toggle pull trick. Or you can bring in even more enemies, especially on a team, right? You're in the thick of this fight. You got all this debuff out, your patches, your auras, your toggles, and people are fighting and blasting, and there's enemies left, right, and over there. Let's screw it, just freaking teleport more in there. Why not? Feed the beast that's going on here. A big giant black hole of doom you're setting up, killing everything. So that's what's going on with teleportation. I grab maneuvers, just to give it a little bit more defense, right? Just to kind of compound with the minus hit I'm running. And then I already mentioned Soul Mastery. I've got that going on. I didn't take Dark Consumption. Talked about this as the worst power in the game, right up there with Dimension Shift. Freaking self-endurance, low damage power, right? But it's on a 6-minute recharge? Huh? I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense. Soul Drain, meanwhile, is on a 4-minute recharge, and it's going to do a hell of a lot more damage than Dark Consumption. I mean, look at Power Sink as a comparison. That is a big old endurance draining power, and actually drains, and I think that's like maybe on a 4-minute recharge. Why Dark Consumption is so up there? It doesn't even like have minus to hit on it. It does some damage, and it does plus endurance. It doesn't drain damage. It doesn't debuff. I don't know why it's on a 6-minute timer. And in order to get it a useful speed recharge, you need to like sink 5-6 slots and just commit full on to try to get it to bring its recharge down to 3 minutes. Woo! And that would be like going balls to the walls to get it to be usable. So anyway, it just doesn't make sense. I never take it on any of my characters. I can't think of a single one I would take it on. Anyway, Dark Embrace, that's your shield. Already talked about that. Dark Obliteration, I did mention it, but it's your PB AoE ranged, targeted AoE ranged blast, more minus to hit, right? Bunch of damage. Like this power, the minus to hit on this one is another 7.5. So most of your powers, your blasty powers, your control powers are minus 7.5. And then like your Dark Miasma Dark Affinity Twilight Grass, that was minus 5. I think that was like your lowest, was minus 5. Soul Drain, I love this power. Okay, it's going to buff your damage 32%, buffing your to hit 8%, at least the way I have it slotted. So that's another PB AoE. It's attack plus damage boost. So I like to pull in those targets one way or the other, get them to come to me, and then Soul Drain, boom, Heart of Darkness, Explosion, right? Dark Obliteration, boom. You can do a bunch of damage in close range proximity like that. That's not really not what this build is about, though. It's actually more of a ranged control build. Yes, I can go into melee, but I'm going to also be much more standoffish than some of my other builds I've been showing. And, you know, if you've seen any of my other videos, not that I'm afraid of melee. I love going to melee. Why not? Especially if you can, you know, build your character to survive it. I just didn't build that way, and I think Dark lends itself more to a range, especially with Dark Affinity, that pairing, and the Soul Mastery. You've got a lot of stuff you're able to look down, you know, keep front facing, everything in front of you, and just start dropping pain on people, debuff on people, and control on people. Yeah, you do have some PBOE, and I'm going to go into take advantage of Heart of Darkness. I'm going to take advantage of Soul Drain, Soul Absorption, right? So that's going to happen. But Shadowy Binds, you know, range. Twilight Grasp, range. Dark Grasp, range. Shadows, range. Tar Patch, drop it at range. Fearsome Stare, range. Darkest Night, your toggle at range. Howling Twilight, ranged. Haunts, you drop them at range. Do do do. Shadowfield range patch. Umbra Beasts, he's shooting a lot of range crap with howling and he's spewing of his shadowy binds all over the place. Dark Servant, that has a lot of range with Twilight Grasp. It has Petrifying Gaze. Summon Seer is going to be plinking away with some Psy Blast. So you got range with all these powers and things. So I'm going to be probably 60-40 range, melee 70-30, just depending on enemies and the map and that sort of thing. But I'm definitely going to be firing things first to kind of set up, and then I can go in and take advantage of it, especially solo. If I'm on a team, it might be a complete different story. All right, last thing I want to kind of get into are then going to be the Incarnate stuff. So for the most part, taking a look at my numbers, the totals over here, pull this up for you, pop out window, Incarnates are all off. Make sure everything else is off. Soul Drain, let's turn Soul Drain off. Shadow Falls on. All right, so all my clicky thingies are off. So here's what I'm looking at. Pop out window, zoom it in. We've got defense is not bad, right? We've got 20s and 30s overall. That is with, I clicked, that's with Fade. Let me shut Fade off. All right, so without Fade, this Fade's not going to be up all the time. I got just Shadowfall running, Dark Embrace running, and those are my two main toggles that I'm running all the time. Oh, and maneuvers. So just those three, you know, I've got defenses, smash lethal, energy negative in the teens, uh, positional defenses, melee range stuff, right? That's teens as well. So nothing great, right? Nothing great. Resistances are solid, you know, 50% here, smash lethal, negative. Those are your big three. Energy's pretty good, size pretty good. None of this stuff in and of itself is going to save you, right? But you're a controller, so you've got controls. So if you are controlling half the group, which you should be able to do, locking down minions and lieutenants, no problem, then that means 50% less incoming fire, right? So look at it that way. Anybody you can take out of the fight is not going to be shooting you. So take them out with your controls. Then you got all that debuff for you, the minus to hit, the minus damage predominantly. That's going to lower your incoming threats even more, like from bosses, for instance. So you're going to have a lot of survivability, not just from the raw, you know, resistances and defenses, but all your controls and all your debuffs are going to make this extremely survivable. Then we start doing stuff like, hey, you go ahead and click Fade. Fade is going to jack up your numbers pretty good. Now you got 20s and 30s for your defenses. Hey, that's pretty good across the board. Your resistances, you know, they're in the 60s. You're almost at cap with negative at this point. What's your other one? Soul Absorption. When you click this, it's going to boost up your regen and recovery and see if it, yeah. So take a look at the regen and recovery down here. If I scoot this up a little bit, you can see it better. So your regen and recovery right now, And it got close to 3 to 1 recovery to drain. Your regen's 176, but you go ahead and get a nice soul absorption off. Boom. Now your recovery's 4.5 to 1. Your regen's almost 400%. Like click, boom. Soul drain. Soul drain's gonna help your to hit buff right here and your damage output. So you click that, it bumps you up to 6%. And these are gonna be fairly frequently clicked power. So it's not like you're just making this up. Like, oh, once every 5 minutes you're gonna do this. You're gonna be doing this a lot, right? And then don't forget you got your Darkest Night that you're throwing out there to debuff incoming damage and to hit. I also have Combat Teleport, which is a to hit boost, so it can take me up another 10%. I just don't use it that often where I would teleport into a group, but it's something you could do if you're trying to get a little extra to hit buffing. I don't think you need to hit anybody, so I think as long as you just teleport anywhere, so why not just teleport a couple feet and then that boosts you another 10% to hit. So now, maybe you can hit a harder target that you were having a hard time hitting before. Especially if you're trying to like land a critical heal, maybe that might be a quick, combat teleport and then throw out your Twilight Grasp. All right, so anyway, those are, where my raw numbers are without any incarnates at this point, right? So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at some pretty solid, numbers overall that we can manage. Let me turn off Soul Absorption, Fade, and Soul Drain again. Go back to sort of standard numbers. And then let's take a look at what we're doing for our Incarnates. So Incarnates, I did take Cardiac, not terribly because, well, this character is going to have a lot of endurance issues in action. Even though the raw recovery to end drain is like a 3 to 1, he is going to be firing out like Darkest Night's going to be a pretty hefty, debuff toggle endurance draining. Let me see what the numbers are on that. Darkest Night information. Endurance cost is 0.33, per second. You're gonna have that on like 30 seconds, let's say, for a fight. So that's gonna be a decent amount of endurance you're just bleeding out on top of your other toggles. And then you're throwing out, your bunch of click attacks like Living Shadows is pretty endurance heavy, right? That's 668 on that one. Fearsome Stare, I've got it down to 4.25. That's not too bad. Heart of Darkness is 8, 9. Howling Twilight's a huge endurance hog. I got it down to 15 right now. So that's pretty good. If you have to summon your pets, 6, 7, 6 for Haunt. Your Seer is going to cost you 20. Dark Servant's going to cost you 20. Umber Beast is going to cost you 16. So if your pets are getting killed, you have to keep summoning pets. That's going to take a lot of your endurance. So anyway, you're going to be doing a lot of clicking, a lot of attacking, and you got toggles bleeding. So you can burn through your endurance pretty quick with this particular build. So with Soul Absorption, though, helping with the recovery, and then I went ahead with Cardiac. So that's going to give me some additional some additional endurance cost reduction. So we take a look at the totals. And the other reason, of course, is because it has damage resistance boosting, which, you need that. And fear, right? I want fear. So take a look at the numbers when I activate this. You can see, oops, sorry, wrong one, Cardiac. So your numbers go up about, what, 4% on the damage resistances there. So that's going to be, useful. That's going to get you up to, I think, cap once you click, fade. So once I have fade clicking, yeah, so fade, it gets you up to 75. That's cap for negative, right? I've got 70% here, smash lethal, so that's pretty close to cap with that power. And soul absorption, that's not going to be boosted that much by it, or not at all by it. And then you got your fear boosting, right? So your fear, let's take a look at Fearsome Stare. Effects, right now, Fearsome Stare is sitting at zoom in again. So your fear on Fearsome Stare is 42 seconds. That's the containment one, or the what's it called? Over control. I forget the name of it. This is your standard Mag 3 fear out of the box, right? I'm at a minute Mag 3 with Cardiac click. So when I turn off Cardiac, or I lose, 6 seconds, whatever, on the main fear. So it's gonna help me with my fear. It's gonna help me damage resistance. It's gonna boost my range of all my attacks because I always say, hey, who can't use more range? I'll take it. So that's what I'm doing with cardiac, just making sure I don't run out of endurance because this guy is going to be in it for the long fights, especially if he's soloing. So if you're trying to solo controllers, you're going to need a lot of endurance because you're going to be firing all your attacks, and you don't have a bunch of single target big hitting attacks. You're going to have to rely upon your heavy endurance draining AoEs just to do basic damage. So that's the other reason for cardiac. Then I went with the diamagnetic. I already mentioned this. Minus to hit, minus regen. This is going to help me, stack that with my controls, with my debuffs in Twilight Grasp and Howling Twilight, and plus what the pets are doing. Your Twilight Grasp is being thrown out by a Dark Servant, so that's going to help there. Some more minus regen, 10%, minus to hit 5%. And I believe this debuff, the interface debuff, carries into your pet attacks as well, if I'm not mistaken. I went ahead and grabbed Clarion because you need to have that nice Mez protection because I don't have any. So Mez protection from Clarion, but I always like to go Radial on, at least on control types or squishier types, because not only do you get the status protection, you get the range boost, and you get the plus special. That's going to boost all my mez. It's going to boost my defense. It's going to boost my healing, all that crazy stuff. So if you look at, let's go back to Fearsome Stare now, with all that crap clicked. I mean, check this out. Let me zoom in. So Fearsome Stare, 86 seconds if I have Clarion clicked and my cardiac is running. So boom, 86-second fear, right? That's huge. So it's like almost a 20 seconds, 17-second, 20. It's like a 25-second boost to the time of my fear. So Clarion, Fearsome Stare, I've just locked down an entire group except for a boss for a minute, right? I mean, geez, forget about it. At that point, I can then layer down all my other controls. Speaking of other controls, I have Control Radial. I've used this a couple times before. I've got Control Radial, so boom, this is going to give me, I like this combo because the Radial on Control gives you a chance for Fear, which I've got Fear between me and the Haunts, and Umber Beast has Fear. Chance for Immobilize, which I have Immobilize. Umber Beast, I think, has Immobilize, and so does Dark Servant, so I got 3 sources of Fear, 3 sources of Immobilize, and then the other cool thing about it is that if your target is feared and immobilized, then it will proc a stun 100% of the time. Now, the only thing I don't know is if the fear and the immobilize stacking to trigger the stun effect has to be from the Control Radial specific fear and immobilize procs, or if any fear immobilized from your character will count. I don't know. I suspect it's probably all triggered by just the Control Radial itself. But if you know any better, let me know in the comments. But anyway, more fear, more immobilized, more stun, because I'm also stunning with Heart of Darkness. I'm also stunning with Howling Twilight. So it's a stun fest. It's a fear fest. It's an immobilize fest. It's freaking disgusting what I'm going to be able to do to enemies. Throw in Void. I'm taking this as my PB AoE, exploding judgment, bunch of damage, and I think I'm going core on this one just to do extra damage because I can use more damage. I could go radial and get the minus damage debuff on there, if I wanted to be even more, neutering supportive of a team. And then I think I'm going to go with, actually I already did. I want Vanguard Radial. And the main reason here is that your one pet, the intangible one, that is the Magician, I think. He also has Twilight Grasp. And Vanguard in general is a ranged war pet combo. So there's a Magician and what is it, the Wizard, something like that. The two of them, they stand back and they just start raining like attacks and debuffs and heal and crap. So anyway, I'm going with this because now that's another pet that's going to be throwing some more debuffs, some more minus regen, minus to hit, and heal. So I've got me doing that, the Vanguard pet's doing that, and so is Fluffy, your Dark Servant. So boom, boom, boom. Bunch of healing flying out, bunch of debuff. It's going to be sick. It's going to be crazy. All right. I think I have blabbed enough about this build. So you know what time it is. It's time to put paper to practice and see if what I am talking about is true or a bunch of BS and I'm just making crap up. All right, we'll catch you in the next video when I run some solos against some council and see how things go. We'll catch you then.